My name, Armin Maivis. I was born 1961. I killed a man, slaughtered him and ate him. Since then, he is always with me.
Today, we're looking at 3 people who took someone's life and they did something even worse. They ate them. And when you hear why, it somehow makes it even more disturbing. First up is Armin Moose, a man who found someone willing to make him kill most people couldn't even imagine. Then there's Catherine Knight, who climbed into bed with her partner one last time before doing something so twisted it still shocks Australia today. The last person is Tamara Samsonova, whose victims were all missing a specific body part. To those around him, Armin Moose was just a computer repairman. He was polite to his neighbors, very helpful in the community, and he often helped with babysitting the children in his neighborhood. But behind closed doors, Armin had dark fantasies of becoming one with another human by eating their flesh. For years, he had kept this fantasy a secret, but as he grew into adulthood, he decided to come out of hiding. He started seeking out websites where he could communicate his desires with other people who wanted the things he did. He wanted to protect his identity, so he used a fake name on the sites and claimed he was a butcher. More than anything, Armin wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone, cut them up, and eat them. But in the back of his mind, he also wondered what it might feel like to be on the other side, to be cooked and eaten himself. For years, he pushed those thoughts down. But by the early 2000s, he couldn't fight it anymore. He went online and started posting ads, looking for a volunteer, someone who actually wanted to be eaten. Surprisingly, his ads worked. Several people reached out and said they were willing to go through with it. But when reality set in, every single one of them backed out. When they canceled, Armin didn't try to convince them. He wanted someone who truly wanted to be eaten, and anyone who hesitated wasn't the one. Instead of giving up, he posted even more ads online. Finally, on February 5th, 2001, Bernd Brandis, a bisexual engineer from Berlin, volunteered. He was exactly what Armin had been looking for. Over the next month, the two exchanged emails, sharing their darkest desires and planning exactly what would happen when they met in person. The truth was, Bernd didn't really want to be eaten. What he wanted was to be castrated, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. So he agreed to let Armin kill and eat him, as long as Armin castrated him first. Armin accepted the deal and started counting down the days until they met. On March 9th, Bernd showed up at Armin's house in Wustfeld. They had planned to spend a few days together to talk and get comfortable before going through with it. But when Bernd arrived, he changed his mind. He wanted everything to happen that same day. They spent hours together, cuddling and making out until around midnight. Then, Armin brought out knives, a hatchet, and a meat grinder, and the two set up a camera to record everything. Before they began, Bernd drank a large amount of cough syrup and sleeping pills to dull the pain. They started by cutting off Bernd's genitals first. They tried to eat it raw, but it was too tough and too chewy. So Armin tossed it into a pan with a few ingredients, thinking cooking it would help. But that didn't go so well. The meat burned, and neither of them could eat it. Instead, they fed it to Armin's dog. By this point, Bernd had lost a massive amount of blood. He sat in a bath, drifting in and out of consciousness, while Armin checked on him every 15 minutes, just waiting for him to die. Later that night, Armin took matter into his own hands by stabbing Bernd in the throat. Afterward, he hung Bernd's body on a meat hook and dismembered it. Over the next 10 months, Armin slowly ate Bernd's flesh. In total, he consumed around 44 pounds of human meat. Armin had lived out his darkest fantasy, but instead of feeling satisfied, he wanted more. So he went back online and started posting new ads, hoping to find his next victim. But this time, someone reported him. In December 2002, officers arrested him, and when they searched his yard, they found pieces of burnt body. In January 2004, Armin was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 8 years and 6 months in prison. But that didn't last. In 2006, after a retrial, he was convicted of murder, and this time he got life. Catherine Knight grew up in a home that was anything but normal. Her father, Kenneth Charles Knight, was a violent alcoholic who regularly mistreated and assaulted her mother. She dropped out of school at 15 and got a job at a clothing factory. About a year later, she changed jobs and started working at a local abattoir. That's where she learned to handle knives, and she got really good at it. By the time she was 18, Catherine had married her co-worker, David Kellett. But the marriage was a disaster from day one, and Catherine was the reason. She controlled everything and lashed out violently whenever David did something she didn't like. One night, when he came home late, she hit him on the head with a frying pan. Eventually, David decided he had enough, so he packed up his things and left shortly after Catherine gave birth to their first child. Over the next few years, she got into 2 more violent, chaotic relationships before meeting John Price. John was easygoing, well-liked, and the father of 3. When he first met Catherine, he knew about her past and violent tendencies, but for some reason, his kids took a liking to her, and so against better judgment, he let her move in. After that, it didn't take long for things to fall apart. John had no plans to marry Catherine, and she didn't take that well. So, she decided to get back at him. She filmed a video showing items he had stolen from work and sent it to his boss. John was fired almost immediately, and that was it. He snapped, ended the relationship, and threw her out of the house. It should have ended there, but it didn't. A few months later, they got back together. Only this time, things were worse. They were fighting constantly, and by February 2000, John had finally had enough. So he kicked her out again. But even that didn't stop her. On February 28th, John filed for a restraining order. The same day, he told his co-workers, "If I don't show up to work tomorrow, it's because Catherine killed me." And he was right. That evening, John came home to an empty house. Catherine wasn't there, but she had sent his kids to a friend's place for a sleepover. So, he headed over to a neighbor's place to hang out for a bit. Around 11 p.m., he came back home and went to bed. A few hours later, Catherine showed up. She slipped into new lingerie she'd bought earlier that day and quietly woke John up. Despite everything, they were intimate, and afterward, John went back to sleep. The next morning, he didn't show up for work. His co-workers remembered exactly what he had told them the day before, so they sent someone to check on him. When he got there, he ran into John's neighbors, and together, they went to the bedroom window and started knocking. They knocked again and again, but no one answered. Now they're panicking. They're looking around the yard, trying to figure out what's going on, when one of them spots something. There's bloodstains on the front door. That's all the confirmation they need that something's wrong, so they call the police. When officers arrive, they force their way into the back door and walk straight into a nightmare. Inside, They find Catherine lying unconscious. She'd overdosed on pills. And then they find John. He had been stabbed to death in his sleep with a butcher's knife. As investigators followed the blood trail through the house, they pieced together what they think happened. John likely woke up during the attack and tried to escape. He made it to the light switch, then ran for the front door. He actually got it open, but then he collapsed and fell backwards into the house and died. Catherine had stabbed John at least 37 times, and he bled out right there on the floor. She had waited a while, and then she moved on to the next part of her plan. She picked up a knife and began peeling away his skin. She did it slowly and carefully because she wanted the entire thing to come off in one piece. When she was done, she hung it on a meat hook in the house, just like she used to do back when she worked at the abattoir. Then she went a step further. She cut off John's head and a few other body parts and took them into the kitchen. She dropped the parts into a pot along with some vegetables and potatoes and just let it cook. After that, she set the dinner table, served the food onto 2 plates, and placed handwritten name tags besides each one. The plates were for John's kids. She was hoping they'd come home in the morning and eat their father. Catherine was arrested, and in March of 2001, Catherine was officially charged with John Price's murder. During her interview, she claimed she didn't remember anything, but she did confess to killing John. She first pleaded not guilty, but right before trial, she changed her plea. In November, she got life without parole, and she officially became the first woman in Australian history to ever receive that sentence. In 1971, Tamara Samsonova and her husband, Alexei, moved into a brandy house on Dimitrov Street. For nearly 30 years, everything seemed totally normal. She kept to herself, was polite with the neighbors, and nobody thought twice about her. But in the year 2000, that all changed. One day, Alexei just vanished. Tamara went to the police, filed a report, and the full search was launched. But nothing ever came of it. They didn't find the body or get any leads, and so the case just went cold. What police didn't know was that this was only the beginning, because one by one, people around Tamara just kept disappearing. With her husband gone, Tamara decided to rent out one of the rooms in their home to make some extra money. In September of 2003, she found a tenant, a 44-year-old man named Sergei Platanin. But the two didn't get along. They started arguing constantly, and one day it boiled over. Tamara snapped and she killed him. Then, calmly, she got to work. She cut his body into pieces, packed up everything, went out and dumped it somewhere on the street. The body was never found, and Tamara continued to live her life like everything was just perfect. In March 2015, Tamara's house was being renovated, and she needed a place to stay until the repairs were finished. She spoke to a friend of hers about the situation, and they introduced her to a 79-year-old Valentina Ulanova. Valentina lived on the same street as Tamara, and she agreed to let Tamara stay with her. For a while, the two elderly women lived together peacefully. Tamara helped around the house, cleaned up, and took care of small chores. Everything seemed fine. But as the months went by, their relationship began to fall apart. Valentina eventually asked Tamara to leave, and Tamara said no. She had no intention of going anywhere. Instead of returning to her own home or finding alternative living arrangements, Tamara came up with a plan to get rid of Valentina. She took a trip to Pushkin and walked into a pharmacy. There, she convinced someone to sell her a drug called femazepam. Then she went back home, made a salad, mixed the drug into it, and handed it to Valentina like everything was normal. On the night of July 23, 2015, Tamara walked into the kitchen and found Valentina lying unconscious on the floor. Most people would have panicked, maybe called for help or tried to wake her up. But not Tamara. For her, this meant the plan had worked. She grabbed 2 kitchen knives and the saw, and she started cutting. Valentina was still breathing when it happened. When she was done, she carefully placed the body parts into plastic bags and got ready to make her rounds. She took one bag outside and left it on a nearby street. Then she walked back home, picked up another, and dropped her off somewhere else. She kept going like that, one trip after another, until there was nothing left in the house to carry out. 3 days later, on July 26th, someone spotted a strange-looking bag near a pond. Out of curiosity, they opened it and found human body parts wrapped in a shower curtain. Police were called right away, and the investigation kicked off immediately. By the next day, they had identified the victim as 79-year-old Valentina Yulanova. When they traced the curtain back to her home, the cops decided to pay a visit. Tamara was inside when they knocked. Officers looked around the house and found blood in the bathroom, along with part of a torn curtain that matched the one from the bag. That was enough for them to arrest Tamara, and so they did. The authorities would later search her house to find books about black magic and astrology along with her diaries. The diaries contained entries about other murders she had committed. In one entry she wrote, "I killed my tenant Volodya, cut him to pieces in the bathroom with a knife, and put the pieces of his body in plastic bags and threw them away in different parts of Frunzensky district." This turned out to be her signature method for getting rid of bodies. Investigators began calling her the Granny Ripper and suspected she may have eaten parts of her victims, mainly because she always removed their lungs before dumping the remains. She's still being investigated for 14 other murders, but she's been locked in a psychiatric facility since the day she was arrested.